All right, you click the thumbnail, you know what's up, the DeskMini A300. You're probably researching that product. You want somebody to tell you about it. Well, it's pretty awesome, but I want to talk about how we got here. First up, here's the original DeskMini. This is an Intel-based DeskMini. Got the USB-C, front panel USB 3, the rear I/O looks pretty much the same, wireless. It's got a lot of options. This thing I've had since launch day, and it has served me well. There's also this, if you're looking for something a little beefier. This is the DeskMini, GTX 1060. It's a Z370 chipset. There's a Z390 version. Again, relatively low power. It's a modular MXM graphics card thing. I reviewed this. So when Asrock asked, hey, we know you're a fan of the A300. Do you want to take a look at the DeskMini A300? It was like, yes, let's do that. Now, I've already had this thing apart, and I've already had this thing running, and looking at the engineering and the stuff that's going on under the hood. And this is an awesome case bare bones kit. Sometimes in the vernacular it's called a bare bones kit, because this is pretty much everything you need. Look, I've got the A300. I've got 16 gigabytes of G.Skill. This is notebook memory. This is Ripjaws DDR4. It's two 8 gig sticks. This is DDR4 3200, by the way, which is not super hard to get and not super expensive right now because memory prices are coming down. Also got, thanks, Nathan, 240 gig SSD from Micro Center. This was literally like $20 US. So yay, flash memory coming down. Now I've got a Ryzen 3 plus Vega. That's what I've got in the box here. Actually gonna do the Ryzen 5 plus Vega. Now Ryzen 3 plus Vega, if you're on a budget, you can overclock it a little bit. I didn't tell you to do that. Basically the Ryzen 3 will be fine. If you want just to, get threading and some other cool stuff with the Ryzen 5, you can go for the Ryzen 5. But if you're like strictly a numbers person and you're looking at performance, yes, you can go with the Ryzen 3, save a few bucks. Basically your gaming experience is going to be fine, especially if you're willing to overclock a little bit. The cost differential there is not enough for me. I just went ahead with the Ryzen 5 because why not? I mean, why not? So it's basically a bare bones kit. Everything in this box is the case and the computer. There's no hard drive, which is why we get the hard drive from Micro Center. There's no memory, which is why we got the G.Skill Ripjaws memory. And there's no operating system, so you have to get that. But this is super inexpensive. I mean, it's around $100 US, give or take, depending on your market and some other factors. There are optional accessories. There's a VESA mount that you can get that's an accessory. There's extra USB 2.0 ports that you can get. There's a little knockout sort of on the top of this thing so that you can install more USB ports. There's a Wi-Fi card that you can get if you need Wi-Fi connectivity. And so those are extra little charges if you need those features, or if you need those functions to plug stuff in. If you want to run an M.2 on this, you can totally do that. If you'd rather have an APU, an even more inexpensive AM4 processor, you can totally run that in here as well. Let's build a little system. Let's build a little Linux system with this. Although Windows is fine. Although the thing with Windows is if you buy the retail Windows license, it's going to be around $100. We didn't spend that much. I mean, it's a disproportional cost. This will make a perfectly awesome little Linux workstation, home theater PC, your little brother, or your little sister, cousin, first computer. If you want to get somebody with their feet wet into Steam, the A300 really, it doesn't get any simpler or easier than that, because it's the power supply, it's everything that you need except for storage, memory, processor, and operating system. And depending on the computer stores that are near you and what sort of variants they carry, they may sell pre-configured versions of these, bundled with a processor or whatever. But that's neither here nor there. So cool. All right, let's dive in. Now this is your DeskMini A300 power supply. This is up to 120 watts, so it's really designed for a 65 watt CPU, but can also deliver USB-C power. So 120 watts is a little bit over spec. I mean, some of the first DeskMinis, maybe the power brick wasn't good because I got one that had a dud power brick, but RMA on that was no problem at all. So 6.32 amps, 19 volts. So like a boat, camper, RV, something with a low power system, or like a DC to DC system, 19 volt input, it's pretty tolerant. There's also room in the bottom of the DeskMini for two 3.5 inch drives. Now I'm gonna have one, inexpensive $20 240 gig SSD mounted in the bottom, and that's, if you're watching this video in the future, it's like $20 for 256 gig. That seems like a lot, probably. But if you wanted to do RAID 1 or something like that, you can. Now this is the A300 chipset, so it's not eligible for the free version of StoreMI, but you can get the paid for version of StoreMI. That's no problem. And this is it. I mean, this is the box. Pretty much all that there is to do is install the processor and mount the heatsink. Just to give you an idea, this is the bundled AMD cooler with the Ryzen 5. So this is quite a bit smaller of a heatsink. Ryzen 5 or Ryzen 3 plus Vega. Now this is the default cooler from AMD. This is the Ryzen 3 2200G cooler, because that's the one that I had handy. It does not fit. But you can remove the top ring thingy and then it might fit. Now this thing has two standard 4-pin PWM fan headers. So if you get creative, you probably could install a second fan in here. But where I put the oversized AMD cooler on here, it's not really necessary. Now, if like you don't need to do this, the cooler that it comes with is perfectly fine. I just want a beefier cooler because that's who I am. Now to be clear, the cooler that just barely fits in there is the Wraith Stealth. The other ones are taller and are not going to fit, or there's a version that has like a copper slug in the middle and it's a little bit taller. That one's not going to fit. So if you pick up, Wraith Stealth, it's pretty easy to get those aftermarket, eBay, whatever. But there is a cooler in the box. You can use the cooler in the box. There's nothing wrong with the cooler in the box. But the AMD cooler is a little bit better than the cooler in the box. So Wraith Stealth, that's the one that you want if you want to put it in the DeskMini. Basically, the last thing that we've got to do to install this thing is install our 2.5-inch hard drive, and that's it. Now this SSD is an inland SSD. It's insanely cheap. That's its best feature. Not the fastest, not the most reliable, but cheap. Got about 10 of these so far, and only had one die. And that's basically it. We've got a fully ready to go system in this tiny cube. The outputs on the back, we've got DisplayPort, HDMI, and VGA. So VGA because, this is obviously going to be popular in the low-cost market. So that's why you see legacy connection like VGA. HDMI, which is perfect for your home theater, and DisplayPort, which is a nice modern interface. You can adapt DisplayPort to HDMI if you really want to, and go that way. We've also got Gigabit Ethernet that's provided by Realtek 8111. We've got one USB 2.0 and one USB 3.0 port. Then of course at the front, we've got headphone, microphone, USB 3, and then USB Type-C. So overall pretty good. Here's where those other two USB ports would go if you get an optional USB 2.0 header to go with that. There's a knockout for RS-232 serial, so if you've got a point of sale or something like that you want to run with it, you totally can. So you got a lot of flexibility here. There's also an option for a VESA mount on the back. So if you've got a monitor that has its own stand with a VESA mount on the back, you could actually mount the computer to it. Have a pretty compact all-in-one. Let's install Linux and see how the Linux experience is. So here we are, a few days later, and I've really put the A300 DeskMini through its paces. It's an AM4. It's designed for Ryzen plus Vega because you don't have any other way to install a graphics card on here. And my testing with the Ryzen 5 2400G with the the sort of modified AMD cooler, it's actually worked out really well. Now in the Asrock Bios, you've got all the options that you would expect to have, the AMD like CBS, PBS options. Now nothing would be complete without Linux testing, and so Ubuntu 18.04.2, I think that's the update that just came out a few weeks ago as of the time that we're putting this video together. That update means that you can boot and install on Ryzen plus Vega pretty painlessly. A lot of people, we have a lot of people on our forum that want to sort of do the bleeding edge. I did a video on how to get up and running with the RX 590 on Linux because some last minute changes meant that you could boot to a black screen. Some people had some rough experiences when Ryzen plus Vega first came out, but with Ubuntu, it's pretty solid at this point. You can just install Steam. You don't have to do anything special. I'm thinking about doing a separate Ryzen 5 plus Vega optimization guide. So if you want to share, if you've got Ryzen plus Vega and you're a seasoned Linux professional or whatever, come to the forum at level 1. Let's put together a guide, and I'll turn it into a video and put it on the Linux channel so that it's like, hey, here's your optimization guide for Ryzen plus Vega. To PPA or not to PPA? That is the question, because whether it is nobler with the Mesa updates or, I don't know, rambling a little bit. This is a pretty solid machine, whether you're going to run Windows or Linux on it. The Windows drivers are there, the performance is there. The fan noise is not bad. I mean, this is just the the stock cooler fan noise. The bundled fan, surprisingly, is a little quieter, but the CPU also runs a little hotter. So I also did the burn-in test. Now, I did not do the burn-in test with the bundled cooler, but I did do the burn-in test with Ada64 using the the Wraith Stealth cooler from AMD, and it did not overheat or lock up or do anything weird. The CPU temperature, according as reported by Ada64, did get quite high. It was reporting around 100C, which I think with the offset means that it's probably like 78C to 80C, somewhere in there. Maybe more. I'm not sure. I'm not really 100% sure that Ada64 takes into account the offset properly or not. But for Ryzen plus Vega with the Vega side, that's maybe not bad. And I was also stressing both the CPU and the GPU. So all in all, solid little machine, USB-C, USB 3.1. It would be nice if it had more USB ports, but hey, you can pay about $6 and get the other USB 2 connection. I checked prices right before I did this video. It's about $150 on Newegg for the bare bones kit. Then you need to order a CPU, RAM, storage. You're basically good to go. So for like $400 to $450, you can build a nice APU system. I mean, it's not, because you can't add a GPU later, it's not as upgradable as it would be if you do a GPU, but it's also pretty inexpensive. This is an impressive little machine. I really like the DeskMinis. I really do. I mean, it's just so much horsepower. It's such a small package. All right, I'm Wendell. I'm signing out. You can find me in the Level 1 forums. See you there.